realities. We have quite a lot of good food to eat as we prepare for the end of this year, right into the new year. One of the reasons God can be so easily discredited is because people don't know him by his word. Let me repeat. One of the reasons why God can be so easily discredited is because many people don't know him by his word. You know, people who create their understanding of the nature and character of God based only on the Old Testament usually don't end up with a full and accurate picture. People who create their understanding of God, his character, his nature based on the Old Testament usually don't end up with a full and accurate picture, because the Old Testament is a partial and a progressive revelation. Is a partial and a progressive revelation. Hence, the Old Testament therefore must be explained. Let me repeat that. The Old Testament must be explained because the Old Testament is a partial and a progressive revelation of God. Therefore, the Old Testament must be explained. You know, when people do not know God accurately by his word, then they will attribute to God what Satan has done or what Satan is doing. When people don't know God accurately by his word, they will attribute to God what Satan has done or what Satan is doing. When people don't know God accurately by his word, they will attribute to Satan what God has done or what God is doing. Number 3, when people don't know God accurately by his word, they will attribute to God what people have done or what people are doing. And they will attribute to people what God has done. It's so important to have an accurate knowledge of God in his word. You know, a vital fact of the Christian faith is the knowledge of God. A vital fact of the Christian faith is the knowledge of God. And the knowledge of God in Christianity must be situated within the scriptures. A knowledge of God in Christianity must be situated in the scriptures. Not just in the scriptures, must be situated in the rightly divided word of truth. Must be situated in the rightly divided word of truth. And it's so critical because Jesus in Matthew chapter 22 from verse 23, I'm going to do a bit of a read this morning as we introduce this subject. The same day came to him the Sadducees, which say that there is no resurrection, and asked him, pay attention, saying, Master, Moses said, if a man die, having no children, his brother shall marry his wife, and raise up seed unto his brother. Now there were with us 7 brethren, and the first, when he had married a wife, deceased, and having no issue, left his wife unto his brother. Next verse. Likewise the second also, and the third unto the 7th. Next verse. And last of all, the woman died also. Next verse. Therefore, in the resurrection, whose wife shall she be of the 7? For they all had her. Next verse. Jesus answered and said unto them, you do err, not knowing the scriptures. Please, I'd like you to underline that. Not knowing is the word agnio. Deliberately not knowing the scriptures nor the power of God. So a man that does not know the scriptures cannot know the power of God. Again, a man that does not know the scriptures cannot know the power of God. You do err because you know not the scriptures nor the power of God. For in the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are as the angels of God in heaven. But as touching the resurrection of the dead, have you not read that which was spoken unto you by God, saying, so look at me for a minute, you do err because you know not the scriptures. Therefore, because you know not the scriptures, you know not the power of God. You know, in South Africa, I was on a podcast, and after the podcast, I checked what other things they've done on that particular platform. And I saw that there's one guy in South Africa who is just going around wowing them with dreams and visions. Childhood fantasies that have graduated into a subconscious images. You know, most of these people that keep saying they go to heaven and come back, I've told you time after time, they're just childhood fantasies. You know, the people driving Range Rovers in heaven, the people coming back to see flowers. All those are childhood fantasies or malaria dream that got into the brain and produced images, or some kind of hallucinations, you know, because the Bible remains the boundary of knowledge where God is concerned. We know God through the pages of the scriptures. The scriptures is the check and balance for any supernatural or extra biblical experience. So if the Bible becomes our standard for revelation or for an understanding, we saw all the people who died in the Bible, none of them came back to say anything. Lazarus died for 4 days. When Jesus brought him back from the dead, he had nothing to say. Jesus died 3 days and 3 nights. When he rose from the dead, he went beginning at Moses and all the prophets. He has nothing to say. 3 days and 3 nights. Paul said he was caught to the third heaven and he saw things that were not lawful for the human mouth to utter. He said nothing. All these charlatans and all these clowns going around. I went to heaven. In fact, this guy said he went to heaven and he saw Jesus carrying babies and dropping them in hell. Babies, he throwing them in hell. How can Jesus be throwing babies in hell when Jesus himself said, "Suffer the little children to come unto me, for of such is the kingdom of God"? You know, that guy is a modern day sorcerer. Modern day, sorcerer. You know sorcerers? Sorcerer is a modern day sorcerer and a necromancer. And a lot of people are believing him and taking him serious. That's a clown. That's not somebody that should even be admitted to speak in 00001 Sunday school class. Talk more of giving audience. And the reason why people follow him is because they don't know God by his word. When you don't know God by his word, anything that is extra, anything that sounds, like a fantasy, it excites your mind, because your mind does not know God by his word. So Jesus said to them, because they were saying to Jesus that this man died, the other man married, on the resurrection, whose wife shall she be? And Jesus said there's no marriage in the resurrection. Nobody will marry in the resurrection. In fact, in the resurrection, everybody's going to be like angels, which means angels cannot marry.